different than I thought, but I can tell you I'm already hooked. Just like embarrassingly deep in Disney Dreamlight Valley. Hello, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, which I think you might be, welcome too. I'll say that as an umbrella term, cozy content is something that I routinely engage with, and that content makes me feel really good. So I really want to put some more of that out into the world, and I've been starting that with the video prior to this one, with my little journey upstate with some girlfriends, and I hope to continue this as far as this channel goes, so welcome. Today's video is a reading vlog. First we have this book by Heather Fawcett. It's Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. I am actually about, I want to say almost halfway through, and I am loving it. I've heard about the concept of cozy fantasy from many booktubers. The main book that they often reference is Legends and Lattes, which I have not read. And I know that the big catchphrase for that one is high fantasy, low stakes, and I'm all about that. I just got off of an ACOTAR bender, and I am still really interested in fantasy, as you'll see from this selection. I do want to take a breather, and this so far has been exactly what I needed. The story revolves around a young woman named Emily, and she is a professor of fairy studies, and she is currently in the field doing research for a new study that she wants to present on a more esoteric group of fairies. The book is told in a journal format. The lead character reminds me a ton of the Evie character in the Mummy franchise. She is very much a person who exists more here than she does on the spatial plane, and she doesn't really interact well with strangers, and she has to interact with the residents of a very small Nordic town in order to gain information about the local fae and all of the lore regarding the fae. She has a colleague that shows up who ruffles her feathers frequently, and he's very charming, handsome, and kind of a Lothario type. And it's just sort of about their interactions and also her working on this study. She gets in her own way quite a bit, and he can identify her weaknesses, which I think drives her even more, you know, up the wall. So it's a really fun kind of like romantic comedy setup amidst this fantasy realm. I just got this because of the cover. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I saw a beautiful vampire girl and I was sold. A young woman is drawn into the upper echelons of society where blood is power in the dark and enthralling Gothic novel from the author of The Year of the Witching. Marion Shaw has been raised in the slums, where want and deprivation are all she knows. Despite longing to leave the city and its miseries, she has no real hope of escape until the day she spots a peculiar listing in the newspaper seeking a blood maid. I feel like that's all I needed to read. Like, the concept, I was like, I understand what's going on here already. This sounds awful and dark. Let's go. Though she knows little about the far north, where wealthy nobles live in luxury and drink the blood of those in their service. Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. I was like, yeah. Marion applies to the position. In a matter of days, she finds herself the newest blood maid at the notorious House of Hunger. There, Marion is swept into a world of debauchery, and at the center of it all is Countess Lisavette. I'll figure out the sexiest pronunciation and I'll go from there. The Countess, who presides over the hedonistic court, is loved and feared in equal measure. She takes special interest in Marion. Lisavette is magnetic, and Marion is eager to please her new mistress. But when she discovers that the ancient walls of the House of Hunger hide even older secrets, Marion is thrust into a vicious game of cat and mouse. She'll need to learn the rules of her new home, and fast, or its halls will soon become her grave. I'm obsessed with Halloween. I am this close to being a late in life goth. I think I'm halfway there. I don't know if my commitment level is really like at the point that it needs to be yet, but horror and fantasy seems to be where I've squarely landed upon in the genre that I like to pursue. This sounds like absolutely up my alley. I feel like I'm prepping for Halloween in advance this year, like well in advance, because it's not even spring yet. It just snowed. I thought that we were about to get like some beautiful spring weather, but it was a full spring and now it's snowing again. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, I have to go get my coffee because this is so soothing that I feel like I could fall asleep. I'm back. My husband's in the background mailing out Poshmark orders. So let's get back to reading and hopefully not fall asleep again. Well, I didn't fall asleep, but I was getting there. I just finished this. This 5-star book from me. This was so enjoyable. If you love fantasy, but you're not really in the mood for, okay, let's just basically say this. I feel like a lot of fantasy movies are, books and movies are essentially road movies. So much of it is about the traveling quest element, and there's little to no travel in this, even when we get to, let's just say, the climax of the book, which does take place outside of town. We're not really that far outside of town. We don't have to go over like mountain ranges and peaks and valleys and bogs and through all these things to get there. It's just like outside of town, and I realize that I think is what makes it feel cozy, is that the majority of the book takes place inside one small village. What I really liked about this is that there was a romance, but the focal point was not on the romance. It was definitely on the plot, as well as the lead character and her particular flaws, and that how those flaws sort of get her into predicaments, and then also how those flaws are super useful. I would say what I really liked about this is that the central protagonist has an issue with hyper-focusing on things that she loves, and that can kind of be the detriment to relationships around her, but I really just enjoy this, and the fact that it's going to be a series. Ooh, I'm so excited to like start a series when the books aren't all currently available, so I don't have this like impossible task of like, I gotta read them all. I can just wait for the next one to come out. I know that cozy fantasy is an emergingly popular genre right now, and this definitely makes me want to check out the rest. I definitely recommend this, especially if you're coming off something that's like massive in scale. This is really, really fun. That is an ugly cover. I know there's drama about the cover, and I do think that like we should be treated to something else. I'm trying to think of anything that I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm just coming off this and I feel really positive about it. This was just so much fun, and it was very well written. I feel like there's a little bit of a language boost from some of the stuff, some of the fantasy that I've been enjoying lately. This is nice because I definitely had to look up words more than once, and I appreciate when that happens because, I don't know, I'm not a child. I want to be written to like an adult and thought of, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm rambling so much because I just liked this so much and highly recommend. And we're back. I have gotten into my cozy sweater, I've got a little Henley on, and some very comfy pants, and I am now going to crack open Alexis Henderson's House of Hunger, which is my sapphic vampire book. Ooh. And at 280 something pages, I think this is going to be not horrible to get through in terms of length. So I am going to go ahead and get to reading because time is of the essence, and maybe I can finish this before nighttime. Stranger things have happened. I'm about 20 pages into this. It's a little different than I thought, but I can tell you I'm already hooked. There's a young woman, her name is Marion. She lives in the slums of Prain. Currently she holds a position as a scullery maid for a woman named Lady Gertrude, who is well-to-do in terms of the area they live in, but she does live on the edge of the slums and is kind of one of the last vestiges of a wealthier class that is slowly, or probably quickly at this point, diminishing. The whole backdrop of this story feels kind of Dickensian. It's definitely gothic. It is the crappiest place to be. Everything reeks, everything is stinky. Marion meets up with her friend, Agnes. They've been friends since childhood. She and Agnes, when they were both young, they worked as pickpockets, and when they were around 10 years old, they left that behind because they could start getting in trouble, in more serious trouble for these crimes. So they both started to do more like hard labor. Agnes works in a matchstick factory, and Marion, our central protagonist, works as a scullery maid. They meet up every single day after work to have a cigarette and to look at the newspaper. In the newspaper, they have marriage advertisements in the back from a wealthier class of people, and they both like to read the marriage advertisements to pass the time. They think it's funny. Today in the newspaper, there is an ad for a blood maid. Blood maids are, I thought it was like a vampire thing, but it's much more of a like Lady Bathory sort of situation. Blood maids are usually very beautiful young women who go up north where the ruling noble class lives, and they basically just let them drink their blood. Their blood is rumored to have like all kinds of like positive effects for health, immunity. It helps you stay young and beautiful, things like that. Maybe there's something more sinister going on. Maybe there's more things happening. Maybe there is a vampiric thing going on. I don't know. I'm not there yet. So they see the ad for the blood maid, and apparently it's just like not cool to be a blood maid. It's worse than being a lady of the night. It's worse than like pretty much any profession. It's just like not cool to do this job. Marianne is definitely intrigued. The advertisement says specifically, it's not just like for a blood maid, it seems like it's whispers of overall a better lifestyle. It says, wanted, blood maid of exceptional taste, no more than 19, must have a keen proclivity for life's finer pleasures. No references required. Candidates will be received in the mail, blah, 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 blah. You know, I think that she's gonna go and be a blood maid because and blood maids, it seems, are treated really well. She has a memory from childhood of seeing a blood maid on the train, and she's wearing beautiful fine clothes, and like that's probably enough, right? Like if they're dressed up fancy and seem to be in good health, that's good. But they also mention like what kind of happens after a blood maid has sort of like served her purpose for a few years, because I don't want older women being blood maids. You only want the young ladies to be blood maids. And it seems like after a few years of them doing this profession, it's like they're washed up, they are pushed back into society, and people treat them like crap. But then there's rumors of other blood maids like getting to be like to go out to pasture in the country and have blood maids of their own. And it just seems like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like Marianne has many options. And honestly, like I'd go that way too. So this is definitely super gothy, and I'm really into it. For as bleak as everything is, it reads really quickly. I can tell the caliber of the writing is really up there, really good. I'm very intrigued. I love the world building. I'm gonna go see Sweeney Todd on Broadway this week, and I can't help but kind of imagine that kind of atmosphere as the backdrop for this story. I really like how open they are about the protagonist's sexuality. They've talked about how she's had lots of like female partners in the past, and even her and Agnes like hooked up, but they decided they were better friends. And there's something about like fantasy whenever the lead character is like pure and like chaste, like deeply irritates me, because I hate stories about virgins. I find that like so, I don't know, like who cares? So I do like that we're starting out and she already has like, you know, she has like a past, which is great and so much more realistic. I think it's very gripping so far. I love it so far, and I'm excited to see what happens. It's definitely bleak. It's not for the faint of heart, not weak of heart, but I like creepy gothy things. If this is gay Crimson Peak, I'm gonna be satisfied. So I'm just gonna get back to reading. I'm having so much fun. A few days. Actually, I think it's been a week, but I kind of needed a break. I've never tried to marathon read like this before, and it just makes me like honestly, I'm wondering if I'm really enjoying a book if I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna read as much as I can in a space of time, but I guess that's kind of the point of doing this experiment. I had a great week. We saw Sweeney Todd on Broadway, which was so much fun. I saw a preview of the show. I think the show officially opens later on in March. And I recently learned that it's, I guess, poor etiquette to really formally review a show while it's still in previews, because they haven't necessarily worked out all of the kinks yet of the show. But I had a great time. I recommend it. If you come to New York while the show is running, do you hear my cat? If you come to New York while the show is running, absolutely see it, especially if you like kind of like gothy vibes. So I am ready to pick this back up. I haven't read really all week. I've really been just like embarrassingly deep in Disney Dreamlight Valley, the video game for Switch. It's so much fun. It's essentially Animal Crossing, but with Disney characters, and it's really so much fun. And I do think that like their ideal candidate is like a millennial, because the characters that you get to make are like adults. So I don't consider myself a Disney adult, but I've been definitely playing this game as if I was a Disney adult. Ready to jump back into this though. I had a nice break, and I actually got a few books that I'm like, I want to add to my TBR already. I'm a part of Book of the Month Club, and I got the London Seance Society for my selection this month, and I'm already excited to read that. I don't want it to take the place of the order that I've kind of already established, but I want it to. This is good and exciting, and I'm excited to jump back into this today. So the last time that I personally left off, I didn't leave off with you, our heroine has now ended up in the North, and she has become a blood maid. One of my favorite, not tropes, but one of my favorite devices in this is that she meets essentially like a sommelier of blood, and he tastes her blood, and apparently like she's got a good thing going on and she tastes exquisite. And apparently this one countess, this woman, has a very discerning palate, and so she has been sent to go spend time with this woman in the North whose last name literally is Bathory. Personally, I feel like I would have enjoyed like not it being so on the nose, but maybe this whole thing is just like a retelling of the Elizabeth Bathory, not story, but events. So I can't wait to pick this back up. I feel like I'm just like modeling with the book. And I will take you along for the ride, and I'll jump back in with my thoughts. We've made it to Journey's End with House of Hunger. I have a lot of thoughts. This book, overall, the story is so clever, smart, engrossing, exciting, and absolutely creative. I'm really good at like guessing the end of things, whether that's TV shows, books, movies. I feel like I pay attention to tropes and signals that I'm getting throughout the text, and I'm like, this is what's gonna happen. I didn't guess the ending with this at all. I was kind of on just as much of a roller coaster as our protagonist. I learned some things about myself, which I'm really excited about as a reader. I used to see things very black and white and be like, I liked this book or I didn't like this book. I liked elements of this book, didn't care for all of them, and I feel like I really learned something as a person who enjoys horror. I definitely found my horror icks in this book. I'm gonna try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but we might be like dancing along the edge of that, and this video is almost over anyways, but I will try and make it spoiler-free. So what gives me the ick about this, I've realized, is that I can read text and text and text about vampires, but the second that you are not like a mythological creature vampire and you are basically just a human being engaging in vampirism, I'm checked out, and I feel like it got under my skin. I had to pause and be like, oh, I'm uncomfortable reading this. I don't know if I like it. And then I was like, well, this is extremely effective horror, you know? I feel like there were times when I would watch like American Horror Story with a friend, and I'd be like, this is, you know, so fucked up, and I'd have to tell myself, well, it's not called American Happy Story, it's called American Horror Story. And I'm sort of realizing that I sort of like a lighter spooky fare. Maybe I like just more of the gothic tonality of something, or a ghost story, or maybe just like body horror stuff really gets under my skin. I think that there are content warnings abound for this book. Anything you can think of, there is, you know, assault, there's some like sibling stuff. Definitely like body horror. There's hyper specific descriptions of like molar removal, just like some really grody stuff. I will say the setup, the world, the storytelling of this is superb. I just didn't really care for some of the grisly details. Also, the main antagonist is this kind of cult of personality character who has like a grip over a lot of the other characters. And I felt there was a really big opportunity missed by the author to make the reader captivated by this character, because I never was captivated by this character. There were a few scenes early on that gave me the ick about this character, and I was like, I'm not on board. And I almost feel like I wish I had gone on the journey, the same journey that the protagonist had, where this character was pulling us in, and then we suddenly had to be like, pump the brakes, this is not a person that I want to spend my time with. I wish that I had been pulled into that a little bit more, and I had felt the charisma of this individual, but I didn't really ever feel that, and I am disappointed by that. I think that if I was looking at it beat for beat for beat and like seeing the entire story drawn out, so cool and the cat's jumped on the table. The story is awesome. The details, not so much. There were boring parts of the book. I think that it had a really strong beginning, a super, super exciting climax and end. And then there was sort of just like this like middle to 75% of the way in where I was just sort of like, all right, like catch me up. There's a love story in this. Again, I just don't feel like it personally like captivated me. And I read some reviews of it on Goodreads, and it's so interesting to see when other people's opinions align with your own. For these scenes to be so sapphic, they did feel like they were lacking like a feminine perspective almost. Like it was very kind of like straight to a penetrative act, and I could have used with some foreplay. I think that one of my roses for this book, because I got roses and I got thorns, there's a chase sequence that the book climaxes in that is really exciting. And I think that to have a chase sequence written and to have me like super captivated while I'm reading and feeling like I'm keeping up pace with the person being chased, I think that's so cool. I marvel at that. And I think that that's a true skill that this author definitely has. And I wouldn't be turned off by reading another offering from this author. I'm also kind of like realizing maybe I don't like vampire stuff. If I had to characterize this book, it reminded me of two films. It reminded me of The Favorite and Interview with the Vampire, kind of put together. This is so funny because I already kind of referenced Rachel Weisz earlier, but Rachel Weisz, specifically her character in The Favorite, that is who I visualized as the Elizabeth character while reading this book. It's just been a Rachel Weisz reading marathon. The kind of like desperation to please like a female ruler, that is so prevalent. I think that if you wanted like something to watch after reading this, I would absolutely watch The Favorite and then Interview with the Vampire. So this book's take on vampirism is definitely like a very sad, lonely, kind of depressing take on it. And Interview with the Vampire, I think, is very, very similar in that regard, particularly the Louis character, Brad Pitt in the movie. I also read the book many, many years ago when I was in high school, and that reading experience really reminded me of this one. And I'm just kind of puzzled. I feel like, you know, maybe when you're characterizing vampire books, you might be headed into like a depressive situation, because I feel like the life of the vampire is kind of depressing, like always needing this sustenance while having to like hide out from the sunlight and from happy human activities and things like that. Maybe, I don't know, are there happy vampire stories? Are there vampire stories with adventure, intrigue, and excitement? I mean, this definitely had all of those things, but it definitely had that kind of foundational, like just like an overarching sense of grimness, which does, I think, intone the Gothic setting. I think that is perfect. I probably wouldn't read again. I don't know how much I'd recommend this to people. I did watch a lot of videos with like horror readers, and they all seem to be big fans of it. I think I just finally tapped into my ick factor when it comes to horror, and it's definitely like vivid descriptions of like mouths like dripping with blood that they had just eaten, and there's lots of descriptions of like blood being cooked into food and things like that, and I was just like, so effective horror, but just like a little too effective for my personal disposition. This is such an interesting book to me because I would give it a 3 out of 5 stars, because overall I don't think I had an unhappy experience reading it. I don't think I completely disliked it. I did dislike elements of it, and I'm just learning to be a person that doesn't necessarily have to live in polarities when it comes to my reading experiences. And that's, I don't know, that's cool. So check this out if this sounds interesting to you. If you're not interested in the horror genre, I don't think there's too much to pull you in here. What I liked about it, I think it's wonderful to see women of color in the forefront of fantasy. Something I've never really understood is like, why in completely made up worlds do we still center whiteness? It makes no sense to me. Why do we center like a gender binary? Why do we center monogamous relationships? Like, I'm going on a little like rant here, but like, don't make up an entire world of fairies and like expect me to believe that these immortal, sexy creatures are monogamous, because I won't for a second. It doesn't make sense. I had a wonderful time reading with you. I will say that after I read House of Hunger, I immediately grabbed my copy of Anne of Green Gables and I read like 30 pages of it before I went to bed, just because I needed to couch in the horror with something sweet. And if you can't tell by my top and some of the footage in this video, I'm ready for spring to come. I say, what's been nice about this is that sometimes I'm too eager for Halloween to come, and I will say that House of Hunger has made me eager for spring. So I need to read something sweet, something cottagecore, maybe something Regency era. If you have any recommendations for a lighter read that you like to read to get yourself out of a dark, scary place, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will be here again very soon. Thank you for watching, and I hope you join me again.